Hey everyone, I wanted to jump on real quick and share some more thoughts that I had about my post that I shared yesterday about how we can focus more on our strengths versus our weaknesses. So the other day I was out mountain biking and I've been working really hard to develop the skills that I need to increase my speed as I go downhill. And one of those skills is to be able to anticipate what is coming ahead in the trail, to be able to look further ahead and just allow my body to move with the trail instead of having to slow down and take, every little section of the trail bit by bit, but to just kind of embrace it as one fluid motion and trust that my body will instinctively find the best routes. Well, on this particular ride, as I came around a corner, my vision was cut a little bit short because of coming around the corner, and as soon as I came around the corner, I saw a huge rock in the middle of the trail, maybe 5-10 feet in front of me. Not enough time to quickly pick a better route. And the first thought that came into my head when I saw this rock was, "Don't hit the rock, Courtney." Well, of course, as this thought is repeated in my mind, the only thing that I can do, and what I end up doing, is hitting the rock dead on. Now, thankfully, it didn't cause me to crash, and I just had a massive bump as I rode my bike up and over this huge rock. But the lesson that I learned from this experience is that wherever our minds, or whatever our minds focus on, that is the direction that we are going to go. And the interesting thing is, our minds don't really tell the difference between, like the nature of the thought versus the content. So the nature being whether it's positive or negative, wanting to do something versus not wanting to do something. The mind just recognizes the content. So even though I was thinking, "Don't hit the rock, don't hit the rock," the nature of "don't hit the rock" wasn't registered. Hit the rock, the content was. So that's the interesting thing that we have to learn, is that it doesn't matter if we're focusing on, I don't want to, I don't want to be impatient, or I don't want to be stressed out all the time. If we're focusing on being impatient or being stressed out, that's what is going to be what we demonstrate in our lives. So we need to be able to switch what we're focusing on and focus on, I want to have patience. I want to be calm. And so this is kind of what happens with our thoughts regarding our weaknesses and our strengths. And too often we're focusing on everything that isn't working. We're focusing more on what we can't do, and we're focusing on what's limiting us, and we're focusing on the gap between where we are and where we want to be. And we're not focusing enough on our assets, on our strengths, what we do have, our talents and our unique gifts. And I truly believe that each of us are whole and complete as we are. To become who we are meant to be, I don't believe that we need to fix things that are wrong with us, but that to become who we need to be, it's about discovering and embracing the abilities and strengths that are already within us. So I heard once this analogy that I really liked about our strengths and weaknesses being like a coin. And just like a coin has two sides, our strengths and weaknesses are are together and two sides of a coin that is us. And so, for example, as I've noticed within my own life, I have a strength of being very efficient with my time. I manage my time well. But it also creates this weakness where I'm not always as flexible as I would like to be. I don't always, if if someone needs help from me, or if there's a situation that comes up that needs my attention, it can be difficult for me to break away from what I've predetermined needs to happen and my schedule that I have for that day to then address the situation that came up, or the need that someone has expressed to me. And so to recognize, okay, this is, that's the inflexibility is not necessarily a strength. It's something that I want to improve. But on the flip side, it comes from my strength of managing my time well. And so it's this balance then that we have to discover of how to be able to take that coin with both sides and be able to let both sides be a part of us and not dominate each other. And so I want to share a few strategies that I use to help me focus more on my strengths, focus more on those assets that I have. Because as I previously explained, if we're where we're focusing or what we're focusing on is the direction we're going to go. It's going to be what we then demonstrate in our life. What appears most in our life is what we're focusing on. So how can we focus more on our strengths so that is what appears more often in our lives and the situations in our lives? So the first one is a real simple one, but very powerful, is to identify them. And be generous in your identification. And think, not only like your strengths, but think of your assets. Do you fluently speak a language? And English. If you fluently speak English, what a great asset. But any language at that is a great asset. Can you read and write? That is a huge asset. Do you have a vehicle that you can drive places? That's a great asset. Do you have a home? And then going on to strengths. What are your strengths? List them. And then after you list out your strengths, and remember to be generous, I want you to say them out loud. And this is what I've done with my own self. And it's very powerful because, when someone comes to you and tells you something that you're good at, like, wow, you're such a great listener, or, man, you always can say something funny just at the right moment and you just brighten my day. When you hear those words, when someone tells you what you're good at, how does that make you feel? I know for me, it really confirms, like, yeah, I am pretty good at that. And it makes me want to continue to improve upon that and to focus more on that. But we don't necessarily need people to tell us what we're good at. Yes, it's very much appreciated, and we should do our best to try and do that for other people, to point out their strengths. But we can do that for ourselves. So when you list out your strengths, tell them, read them to yourself out loud so that you can hear yourself telling yourself what you're good at. And to be able to hear those words out loud will confirm to yourself that, yeah, I am good at that, and help you to be able to focus more on those things. Alright, the second strategy that I use is to see the big picture. So what do I mean by this? Well, I, a couple months ago was thinking about, my skills as a conversationalist, being able to carry on a conversation. And I wanted to improve those skills and be better at carrying on a conversation. I'm a little bit of an introvert, and so while I, love being around people and do really well in smaller settings and, fairly well in even larger settings, it doesn't always feel like it comes naturally to me to be really good at carrying on a conversation, and it can feel exhausting. But I wanted to improve on this skill. So what I did to help see the bigger picture is I wrote down every quality and trait that I thought was part of being a good conversationalist. So some of those were, someone that's funny, someone that asks good questions, someone that's a good listener, someone that, is genuinely interested, someone that, is knowledgeable and has various topics that they can pull from and offer for a conversation. And the list went on. I had a variety there. And then I circled which qualities and traits I already possessed. I was a good listener. I asked good questions. And of course, some of the traits I couldn't circle. And I can't think of things quickly on the spot or think of funny things on the spot. But the point of this exercise of seeing the bigger picture is to realize that for every skill that we want to acquire, or anything that we want to improve in our life, that there are multiple skills and traits that make up that ability that we want to acquire. And most likely we already have some of those skills and traits. And so we need to focus on the big picture, that we do have skills and traits already that are required for that ability. And we need to then focus on those, use those, capitalize on those strengths, those skills and traits that we already possess, and use them to then help us become better at the ones that we don't possess, or to compensate for the ones that we don't possess. Because someone may be a great conversationalist because they are witty and they can come up with quick responses to what people are saying, but they may not be a good listener. They may not ask good questions. So you see, to be a good conversationalist doesn't necessarily mean that I have all those traits. It's about focusing on what I do have and believing that those traits and skills that I do have do make me a good conversationalist. Okay, so the third strategy that's helped me to focus more on my strengths is to remember that everything can be learned. Everything is a skill that can be learned. And I know it seems so simple, but it really just was such an aha moment for me and lifted such a weight from my shoulders that, you know what? I don't need to think that I'm just, this type of person. Like, I'm just not good at conversations, or I'm just not outgoing enough, or I'm just an impatient person, or I just worry a lot. That I don't have to think that anymore, because anything can be learned. Being a good conversationalist, being more outgoing is a skill that can be learned. Worrying less is a skill. Being patient is a skill. And so the exercise that I did to help me solidify this strategy is to write down things that I've learned in the past. So think about it. What have you learned in the past? I'm sure there's things that you've learned, and they don't have to be complicated things. Just simple things. Learning how to drive, learning how to read, learning how to cook, learning how to play a sport or an instrument or do art. You know, whatever it is. And yeah, some of these things may have come more easily to you than others, but we all have to learn in order to master the skills that we're good at. And we all have the capability to learn new skills and to develop new skills. So I hope you remember these 3 strategies. They've helped me a lot to be able to focus more on my strengths and my assets instead of my weaknesses and limitations. And some of these strategies are actually daily challenges within the I Live Big challenge that's coming up starting June 1st. So if you want to have the opportunity to start implementing some of these strategies into your life for the next 30 days starting June 1st, then make sure you check out the link for the I Live Big 30-day challenge so you can see what all the various challenges are within the 30 days and how you can participate. It'll be lots of fun, and I'll be excited to do it with you. So I hope you have a great Saturday. We'll talk to you later.